I want to start today by asking you to do something a little weird. I want you to try and break your own brain.
That is a bold opening.
Just bear with me. I want you to close your eyes and just picture a dog. The first image that pops into your head when I say the word dog, what do you see?
Oh, I think for, 90% of people, it's probably a golden retriever, maybe a German shepherd.
Right.
Floppy ears, wet nose, 4 legs, chasing a ball, the usual.
Exactly. You're picturing let's call it the standardized tier biology that we've sort of smoothed out over the last couple hundred years to be, consistent and friendly.
Uniform.
Yeah, uniform. But we've been reading through this fascinating research paper, Evolutionary Niche Specialization and Taxonomic Scarcity. And it turns out that mental image in your head is, well, it's incomplete.
It's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right. There is this whole other layer of dogs underneath that, a peripheral tier, if you will. And these are canines that just defy the basic biological rules we think we know.
I mean, we are talking about dogs with 6 functional toes.
Dogs that climb ladders like monkeys. Dogs that heat up like little radiators, and dogs that, and this is my favorite, literally sing like whales.
It sounds like science fiction or maybe a carnival sideshow, but the core argument of this research is that these aren't just freaks or novelties.
Yeah.
They're masterclasses in evolutionary engineering.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to look at 7 specific breeds that didn't evolve for, like, a Westminster dog show ribbon.
Mm-hmm.
They evolved to survive in places where a Labrador wouldn't last 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
We're going from the cliffs of Norway to the jungles of Malaysia and even the ancient Aztec underworld.
And the big takeaway here, the so what of all this, is understanding why they look this way. We tend to look at dogs and just think they're cute. But in this peripheral tier, every strange trait we discuss today is a specific biological answer.
To a lethal problem.
To a lethal problem, exactly.
So let's start with the one that honestly just shocked me the most. We need to go way up north to the Arctic Circle, the Norwegian Lundehund.
Or, as it's known historically, the puffin hunter.
The puffin hunter.
This is, in my opinion, the ultimate example of specialized engineering. These dogs were developed on the Lofoten archipelago, specifically the cliffs of Rarest and Rarest.
And we really need to set the scene here because cliffs, that sounds kind of picturesque, right?
It does, but it's not.
These are not rolling grassy hills. We're talking vertical, wet, slippery shale cliffs rising straight out of the freezing ocean.
And the dog's job was to climb that somehow, shove itself into a narrow burrow.
And drag out a puffin.
Right. And that is a physics problem. If you put a beagle or a terrier on that cliff, gravity wins. They just fall.
Their bodies aren't built for that.
No, their anatomy isn't built for vertical friction, so the Lundehund had to, rewrite its own skeleton. The paper calls it obligate polydactylism.
Which is the fancy way of saying extra toes.
Yeah.
But I want to be really clear for everyone listening, because I've seen dogs with dew claws, those little floppy toes on the ankle. That's not what this is, right?
No, absolutely not. This is functional architecture. The Lundehund has 6 fully formed, muscled, and jointed toes on every single foot.
Wow.
On the front paws, 5 of those toes are triple jointed and 1 is double jointed. It acts almost like a human thumb.
A thumb on a dog. That just sounds wrong.
It looks wrong if you compare it to a poodle, but on a cliff face, it's a lifesaver. It creates this huge surface area and gripping power.
So more grip.
Way more. Standard dogs have 5 paw pads. The Lundehund has 8. It's all about maximizing contact with wet rock to stop a fatal fall.
But the toes aren't even the weirdest part for me. It's the joints. The notes describe them as being like made of rubber, specifically the shoulder movement.
The shoulder articulation, yes. So think about how a normal dog runs. Their legs move forward and backward, right, in the sagittal plane.
Sure.
It's great for running fast in a straight line, but on a cliff face, straight lines don't exist. The Lundehund can essentially dislocate its shoulders voluntarily, so its front legs splay out 90 degrees to the side.
Like a person doing a T-pose. Or doing the splits with their arms.
Exactly like that. They do this to hug the cliff face. If they slip, they can just sprawl out and catch a ridge.
And then there's the neck. I read this 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. The 180-degree retroextension.
That is the technical term. Imagine bending your head backward until your forehead touches your spine.
Ouch.
Right. A German Shepherd can't do that, but the Lundehund has to. Puffin burrows are often dead ends.
So they can't back out.
Exactly. You crawl in head first to grab a bird. You have to physically fold yourself in half to turn around in a space that's barely the size of your own body. That neck lets them do it.
It's basically a spelunking alien.
Hmm.
But here's the tragic part of the story, and it's a theme we're going to see a lot today.
Mm.
This dog was a biological marvel, and we almost let it go extinct.
We did. It's a classic case of technological obsolescence. In the early 20th century, people just started using nets to catch puffins instead of dogs.
The dogs lost their job.
They lost their job. Then a distemper outbreak hit. By the 1960s, there were only 6 Lundehunds left on the entire planet.
6. That is terrifyingly close to 0. That's a genetic bottleneck you can barely even squeeze through.
It is. And while the numbers are up to about 1,500 today, that bottleneck had severe consequences. You'll see references in the literature to Lundehund syndrome. It's a chronic gastrointestinal disorder that affects about 30% of the population.
The price of inbreeding.
It's the price of inbreeding.
But they are trying to fix it. I saw a note about a controversial outcrossing project.
Yes, starting around 2014, the breed club began carefully mixing in Norwegian Burhunds and Icelandic sheepdogs. The goal is to keep the 6 toes and the flexibility, but introduce just enough fresh DNA to stop the stomachs from failing.
A huge debate, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, purity versus survival, but it seems to be working.
So we've got the cliff climber, but climbing isn't just for rocks. Let's jump from the Arctic to the jungles of Malaysia. I want to talk about the Telomian.
The ladder climber.
This one is fascinating because it's a perfect example of how human architecture forces animals to change their biology. So the Telomian is a dog native to the Orang Asli people near the Telom River.
And these people live in stilt huts.
Right, and they build on stilts for very good reasons, to avoid monsoon floods.
And to stay away from predators on the ground like cobras, these huts are 6 to 8 feet up.
So picture this. You are a dog. It's dinner time. Maybe a flood is rising. You want to get into the house. But the house is 8 feet in the air. You can't just scratch at the back door.
You have to climb a vertical wooden ladder. And we aren't talking about a nice, safe ladder. We're talking about rickety bamboo rungs tied together.
Wow.
So this environment forced the Telomian to develop what we call prehensile dexterity.
Prehensile. That's what we use for monkeys, right? Using hands to grasp things. Are you saying these dogs had hands?
In a functional way, yes. They use their front paws to literally wrap around the rungs. They can articulate their toes to grip the bamboo.
And that dexterity shows up in other ways.
Oh, absolutely. The notes mention Telomians are notorious for opening doors, turning knobs, and even holding food in their paws like a squirrel to eat it.
It's incredibly cat-like.
It is. And unlike the Lundehund, which is a celebrated national treasure in Norway, the Telomian is kind of a ghost. In Malaysia, they're often just seen as kampung dogs, village strays.
Which is wild to me. You have this rare ladder-climbing genius dog, and it's treated like a pest.
That's the pariah status. Because they're technically semi-feral, living on the edge of the village, they don't get the prestige. But genetically, they're ancient. They have that blue-black tongue, similar to a chow chow, which is a sign of a very old lineage.
Okay, moving from climbing to sensory input, I want to talk about a dog that looks like an optical illusion. Let's head to Turkey, the Catalburun.
The Tarsus pointer, or as you probably saw in the photos, the double-nosed dog.
It's startling. I looked up a picture, and it looks like someone took a photo of a dog's nose and just mirrored it. There is this deep groove right down the center, separating the nostrils completely.
It looks like 2 separate noses taped together.
Yeah.
That's a bifid nose. It's a rare genetic trait. You really only see it in the Catalburun and a couple of other very obscure breeds.
Now, the folklore is that this split lets them smell in stereo, right?
Huh.
That they can separate smells from the left and right nostril better than a normal dog. Is that actually true?
Science is, let's say, skeptical. There's no concrete physiological evidence that the split mechanically improves their sense of smell or creates a stereo effect. But if you talk to the hunters in Tarsus, they will swear by it.
So the jury's out on the mechanics.
Practically speaking, though, these dogs are legendary pointers. They track partridge and francolin by sensing scent on the ground and in the air at the same time. So whether it's the split nose or just a superior brain for processing smells, they are elite hunters.
And apparently smart enough that the Turkish police have started using them.
Yes, for narcotics and rescue work, they're intelligent, very focused. But again, rarity is the theme. There are maybe 200 of these dogs left.
Another one on the brink.
Heavily inbred, but surprisingly, they don't have many major genetic diseases other than some hip issues.
It seems to be a pattern. The weirdest dogs are the most endangered. Which brings us to the living fossil, the new Guinea Singing Dog.
This is my favorite story of the bunch, because for a long time we thought we had lost them entirely.
Before we get to the extinction part, we have to talk about the singing. I listened to a clip of this. They don't bark at all.
No, a bark is actually a sign of domestication. It's sort of a juvenile trait, like a wolf puppy yipping. Adult wolves don't really bark, they howl.
And the singing dog sings.
It produces this harmonic, yodel-like sound. If you look at a sonogram of their call, it is almost identical to the call of a humpback whale.
A whale song coming out of a dog. That is haunting.
It's practical, though. They live in these dense, mossy cloud forests in the highlands of New Guinea. A sharp bark just gets absorbed by the moss. It deadens the sound.
But the howl carries.
A shifting, harmonic howl carries through the mist. They can even change pitch mid-breath to harmonize with the rest of the pack. It's a location beacon.
And physically, they're weird, too. Their eyes glow green.
That's the tapetum lucidum, the reflective layer behind the retina. Singing dogs have a wildly high density of it, which gives them superior night vision. They are more like forest spirits than dogs.
So they're climbers, too.
Flexible spines, very cat-like climbing ability. They are the apex predator of that ecosystem.
But you mentioned we thought we lost them.
Right. Since the 1970s, the only singing dogs we knew about were in zoos, about 200 to 300 of them, all descended from just 8 original dogs.
Only 8.
Incredibly inbred. We were seeing kinked tails, fertility issues. We thought the wild population was just gone.
Until 2016.
The expedition to Puncak Data, researchers went high up into the mountains, one of the most remote places on Earth, and photographed these highland wild dogs, but they didn't know if they were the same thing.
Or just strays.
Exactly. Were these ancient dogs or just village strays that wandered up the mountain?
And then the 2020 study dropped.
Yes, a study in PNAS, they compared the genomes. The Highland wild dogs are the singing dogs. They're the ancestral population.
Wow.
This was huge because it means we have a genetic reservoir. We can use these wild dogs to save the zoo population from inbreeding depression. It's basically Jurassic Park, but real. We found the dinosaurs alive in the valley.
That is incredible. Okay, so we've covered climbing, smelling, and singing. Now we'll look at how these dogs handle the elements, specifically armor and temperature. Let's look at the Bergamasco sheepdog.
The living rug.
It looks like a walking carpet,
Mm-hmm.
but your notes say we shouldn't call them mats, they are flocks. What is the difference? Because to me, it just looks like a bad hair day.
A mat is a tangle of dead hair. It's just bad hygiene. A flock in a Bergamasco is a structured weave. It's architectural.
How does that happen?
The Bergamasco grows 3 distinct types of hair at the same time. A fine, oily undercoat, a harsh goat hair, and a woolly topcoat.
And these just weave together on their own.
They do. As the dog grows, these 3 textures fuse into these flat, felt-like plates. This isn't for looks. In the Italian Alps, these flocks act as thermal insulation, but more importantly, it's armor.
Armor against what?
Wolves. If a wolf attacks a sheepdog, it goes for the throat or the flank. With a Bergamasco, the wolf just gets a mouthful of felt, not skin.
It's impenetrable.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So it's a shield made of hair. Now, if the Bergamasco is the ultimate insulator, our next dog is the ultimate heater. The Ixtluotzcuintli.
The Azolo, the ancient dog of the Aztecs.
Famous for being hairless. But it's not just that they lack fur. Their skin is different, isn't it?
It's extremely thick, described as a hide. But the key physics here is conduction. Because they have no fur to trap body heat, they radiate heat directly from the skin.
So they feel hot to the touch.
Burning hot,
Yeah.
about 104 degrees Fahrenheit.
And the Aztecs used this. They were living hot water bottles.
Literally. If you had arthritis or asthma, you would sleep with a jello pressed against the painful area. The heat was medicinal.
And they still do that today.
They do. There are organizations like Zolos for chronic pain relief that train these dogs for fibromyalgia patients. It's an ancient therapy.
But the history is pretty dark. I mean, they were named after Zodal, the god of the underworld.
Right. They were believed to guide the soul through Miklon, the underworld. But when the conquistadors arrived, they didn't see a sacred guide.
They saw a food source.
They saw a food source. They ate them nearly to extinction, specifically because they were hairless, they were easier to cook and prepare.
So we almost lost them.
It wasn't until the 1950s that enthusiasts went into remote Mexican villages and found 10 authentic Zolos to restart the entire breed.
Again, just hanging by a thread.
Mm.
Which brings us to our final dog, the Thai Ridgeback.
The cobra hunter.
This one is defined by the ridge, that strip of hair on the back growing the wrong way. But I was surprised to learn that this cool aesthetic feature is actually linked to a serious health defect.
This is what we call the paradox of selection. The genetic mutation that creates that cool-looking ridge is linked to a condition called a germoid sinus.
Can you break that down? What is a dermoid sinus?
It's a neural tube defect. Think of it like a zipper that didn't close all the way during embryonic development. It leaves this tiny tube-like tunnel in the skin that goes deep into the back, sometimes all the way down to the spinal cord.
And that gets infected.
Easily. And it can be fatal.
So the very trait that defines the breed, the thing that makes it a ridgeback, is also its medical Achilles heel.
Precisely. It's a biological cost. But in isolation in eastern Thailand, they survived despite this because they were so useful. They guarded carts and they hunted cobras.
How does a dog hunt a cobra without getting bitten?
Reflexes and skin. They have these incredibly lightning-fast reflexes, but they also have very loose skin around the neck. So if a cobra strikes and grabs them, the dog can literally twist inside its own skin to bite the snake back.
That is a nightmare image, but incredibly effective.
It is.
So we've looked at this insane lineup. Six-toed cliff climbers, double-nosed pointers, singing whale dogs, felted armor, living heating pads, and cobra hunters. When we step back from all the cool facts, what's the lesson here? Why does this matter?
I think it comes down to the difference between aesthetic breeding and functional breeding.
Meaning breeding for looks versus breeding for a job.
Right. Today, we love the Ridgeback's ridge or the Lundehund's weird toes. But in the modern world, we tend to breed just for that visual. And when you do that, you get the dermoid sinus without the cobra hunting skills. You get the Lundehund syndrome without the cliff climbing.
The form followed the function.
Exactly. These dogs survived for thousands of years, not because they looked cool, but because those traits kept them alive. And now that the function is gone, we don't hunt puffins, we don't live in still pets. We are at risk of turning these biological marvels into just shapes, just empty aesthetics.
And you mentioned earlier that these breeds are genetic reservoirs.
That is the most critical point. As the world fills up with French bulldogs and golden retrievers, the canine genome is getting smaller. It's homogenizing.
We're making everything the same.
We are. And these rare breeds hold ancient, primitive DNA. They are a library of biological solutions to problems we've completely forgotten about. Solutions like extreme flexibility, or heat regulation, or disease resistance.
So if we let the Lundehund or the singing dog disappear, we aren't just losing a dog.
We're deleting a chapter from that library.
We're deleting a unique biological answer that nature spent thousands of years perfecting. And once it's gone, we can't get it back.
You can't.
That is a heavy thought to end on. Next time you look at your dog snoozing on the couch, just remember, somewhere out there, there's a cousin of his climbing a cliff or singing to a whale.
Nature is a lot wilder than we give it credit for.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one.